What we're going to learn about today is the difference between testing for the existence assertion or occurrence assertion and the completeness assertion. So when we're doing our audit testing, we're normally we're looking at two things. We're looking at source documentation, and we're comparing that information to accounting data. Alright, and we typically have, our source documents could be things like invoices or purchase orders or customer orders, and our accounting data is usually going to be our journal articles. So what's the difference between the two? So let's say here in our source documents we've got invoices. Alright, and for our data we've got journal entries. So I've got a whole lot of invoices here. Invoices 1, 2, I'm just going to make a few up. Alright, and I've got accounting journal entries. So we'll call them J, I'll make them J. Okay, so I've got source documents and journal entries. So when I'm testing the existence or occurrence assertion, I'm starting from my accounting data and I'm working backwards in a process that we call vouching. So I take my journal entry and I match it backwards. Okay, so vouching is moving backwards. And if I vouch, I'll discover here when I test each of these, J2 matches up with invoice 3, journal 3 matches up with invoice 4, journal 4 matches up with invoice 5, journal 5 matches up with invoice 6, but we'll notice that journal 6 doesn't match up to any particular invoice. So here we might have a journal entry where I might have a fictitious sale or an accidental recording. So vouching here has allowed me to prove that either this transaction didn't occur or exist because there's no supporting document. So vouching is a test that allows us specifically to examine the existence or occurrence assertion. So let's move the other way. So how do we test completeness? When we test completeness, we do the opposite. We start with our source documentation and then we trace it forward to the accounting data. So if I traced, I would see that invoice number 3 matches up with journal number 2, but what I would also find is that invoice number 2 is missing a journal entry. Alright, so tracing allows me to test completeness. My accounting data is incomplete. So why can't I use vouching to help me with completeness? Well, if I'm using vouching and I'm starting with my journal data, I won't ever know that this particular journal is missing. So I need to start with the supporting documentation to be able to follow that forward for completeness. So we have vouching that we use to test existence and occurrence, and then tracing, which is starting at the supporting documents and moving forward to the journal to support the completeness assertion. So you need to make sure that you don't get those confused. Vouching is for existence and occurrence. Tracing is for completeness testing only. Of course, at the same time, when you're looking at either of these documents, you might test accuracy or valuation by doing calculations at the same time.